Hey, NAMI students, Mr. Yacht, starting a new chapter today. We're going to continue where we left off with the brain. So we're still going to cover the brain a little bit, but we're mainly, mainly this huge part of the brain. We talked about all this stuff in the middle, the medulla and the brain stem and cerebellum and all those parts. The cerebrum has so many activities that I think it's important that we separate it from the other notes and just kind of focus on what it does, because we could spend a semester just talking about the cerebrum. All right. The importance of the cerebrum is it's the thought processing, the vision, the auditory, all the things that we use on a daily basis. And I kind of want to show you this video real quick, and I know it'll echo a little bit for you virtual students, but this is a crazy story. It's about a baby that was born without a cerebrum. It had a brain stem. I'll just let it tell its story. So here we go.
In the end, the doctors themselves say that science alone can't
answer that question.
And what is his quality of life?
Again.
Let me start this over. My fault. Little technology. Here we go.
Your child will be born with a debilitating medical condition, and they bring him into the world anyway. Now these parents have a medical marvel on their hands. Here's ABC's David Wright. For Brandon and Brittany Buell, the first serious curveball of parenthood came the day after their 17-week ultrasound.
These are his legs. His hands and feet are in the air like this.
Okay. The scan where the couple first found out they were having a baby boy.
The ultrasound tech was acting strange. She got really quiet. And when she got to his head and was measuring it, she didn't say a word.
Then, the very next day, the phone rang with sobering news.
They told me he had spina bifida.
Wow. And how did you process that?
I don't really know. I didn't really process it at the time. I couldn't really believe it.
Turns out that initial diagnosis was wrong. But the scan showed a severe brain abnormality. Their son's head was not forming properly. Brain almost non-existent. Miraculously, Jackson survived. He's now just over a year old. The doctors didn't expect him to.
In fact, it was the sort of pregnancy where doctors,
as gently as possible, mention the word termination. Abortion is much too charged a word.
It wasn't until 23 weeks pregnant that it was brought up.
About the option.
That we had the option to terminate in the state of Florida until 24 weeks.
To put it bluntly, many American families faced with that 17-week scan would not have brought this baby into the world.
How many fingers do I see?
Jackson's parents gave him a chance.
Where do they come from? I can't say, but I bet they have come a long, long way.
But in a way, this is the essence of that debate, isn't it? It can be if anybody wants to
Sort
turn
of.
it
Some
into
people
it.
take it that way, but
We
don't try to take it that way.
Hi, handsome.
They did think about termination.
I would feel terrible doing something like that. But if they were to tell me he was going to suffer, or he would be in pain, or my life was in jeopardy, then my thought process might have been different.
We're Christian, and we believe in what we believe in. But we still are going to do the best thing for our family, for Brittany, and ultimately for Jackson.
And
This is Jackson today, severely disabled, but thriving.
For us, this just seems normal. We don't have another child. First one.
Even just bathing is a task that requires both parents.
Jumping your toys. Yes, or was that no?
Where do you put his happiness?
He's happy almost all the time. He's just like any other baby. He's teething and gassy, so he's cranky often. There you go. Good job.
And he is the sweetest baby. I know we're biased, and that's fine. But of course. But Jackson is not like most other babies. Here's what his brain should look like. Instead, this is Jackson's brain. Only a year later did neurologists at Boston's Children's Hospital come up with a proper diagnosis: microhydranencephaly. Dr. Heather Olson saw Jackson in August. How much of the brain is there?
So very little.
Will he ever be able to talk?
I would be shocked if he could.
Will he ever be able to walk?
Independently, very unlikely.
There's no prognosis. Doctors are surprised he's made it this far. Do you have any sense as to how long he can survive with this?
I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball. It really depends on the medical complications. It's a good boy.
He's only made it this far with the help of his parents. Jackson gets nutrition through a feeding tube. Burping him involves removing the excess fluid directly from his stomach. He sometimes suffers from mild seizures.
Even when he's really calm, sometimes he'll just...
Okay, so you can see, that's tough to watch sometimes, but, I applaud the parents for knowing what that child was going to be and still taking care of it, just like they would any other child. So, that shows you the importance of cerebrum. Not so sure with that little cerebrum, you probably can't see, you will never speak. But what's going on up there, who's to say? And I think that's why we got to look at the cerebrum as a separate chapter, because it does so many things for us. So the cerebrum is the largest uppermost. This is going to be a little bit of a repeat of just kind of want to get some landmarks back down again. We talked a little bit about this last chapter. Just kind of come back to it. So you've heard this word before, the bark. Think of the bark of a tree. That's the cerebrum, the outside surface, the sulci and the gyrus. Longitudinal fissure, we dissected the brains. That's that deep fissure that divides it into right and left. We'll talk more about that. Central sulcus is a shallower groove. It separates the frontal and parietal. The lateral fissure, all this review I know, is separate the temporal from the frontal and parietal, and then the parietal occipital. Okay, so why are those grooves important? Because it kind of helps us separate. Think of a road map. It separates our brain into different quadrants, if you want to look at it that way, because the frontal lobe will do one activity, parietal, occipital, temporal, and we do have physical landmarks that divide most of the brain into those different lobes. So when I refer to these lobes, those landmarks will come back into play and will help you kind of understand that a little bit. All right. Just today, I just kind of want to introduce the basic brain facts, for no better way of putting it. What are some things you see in the cerebrum? The brain represents about 2% of your body weight, about 3 pounds on an average, but it consumes 20% of all your calories. So it is a huge calorie consumer. This is what's crazy. It's hard to fathom this, but the number of potential pathways in just one human brain is 100 times the total number of atoms in the universe. In other words, you're not going to ever fill your brain, no matter how long you live. And basically, the cerebrum is about 80% of the brain by weight. You can see why I separated this into a separate chapter. And basically, D and E are going to go together. The 90s were called the decade of the brain, and the reason for that is because we learned more about the brain since the 1990s than all the other years combined. Okay, why is that? Not that we have smarter brain researchers, not that we have smarter neurologists or whatever you want to talk about. It's technology, the computer. Okay, CAT scans came into existence in the 90s. That is a computerized actual tomography, which gives us detailed structures of the brain. So we were able to see things like this, which you saw from the video. We can put radioactively tagged sugars in a person. We can see where tumors are at and growths and things like that. Just amazing pictures we can produce with CAT scans because, here's another brain tumor diagnosis, but you can just see soft tissue, which we couldn't see before. Okay. So the CAT scan, the PET scan, which goes along with that is positron emission tomography, where we can put those radioactively tagged sugars. So we could say, here, do a math problem. We can see where the brain lights up like a neon sign. So we see where blood flow to the brain is at. Big CAT scans and PET scans were huge. It just allowed us to look into the brain like never before, and we could see brain activity. And we say, oh, that's where we're solving math problems or reading a book or seeing objects or talking language. We started mapping the brain quite a bit, okay? And then the MRI kind of went with that. Magnetic resonance, we use that for lots of things, but we use it for brain research as well because we can see changes in the brain 50 milliseconds apart. So we could actually see the brain shift. So a lot of stuff you're going to see in the notes coming up here are not from a book, textbook. They're actually from a workshop I went to years ago in the 90s when all this first started coming out, and brain research was a big thing. Is actually one of the leading brain researchers in the nation just happened to be speaking at Churubusco, and I'm like, man, if I could talk or listen to him. And they said, oh yeah, come on over. It was awesome. And I got tons of notes from that I'm still talking about today. So you're going to see a lot of that kind of embedded within these things. All right. So I hope that makes a little bit of sense. I just kind of want to introduce some things. Not a real long video today, but get you kind of zeroed in on what we're going to be talking about for the next several days. Okay. Hey, have a great day. We'll talk to you later. See ya. Bye.